At $151 per share, Advanced Micro Devices is now worth $245 billion. But its revenue this year is estimated at a modest 29 and its profit at $2.8 billion. With such indicators, the PE level is 90 to 100. And at the same time, it is worth noting that in 2021, the company's profit was $3.1 billion, with revenue of $16 billion. The company's current financial performance is not brilliant. The growth of financial indicators clearly does not correspond to such a high PE value. But on the other hand, we see a technology leader that has successfully displaced Intel in the server processor market and is the only company in the world capable of challenging NVIDIA's hegemony in the field of AI chips. And this is what gives the company a high valuation. I will try to compare different factors so that you can understand the overall position of the company, understand what is important and what is not, and what gives the company a chance that its high valuation is justified and the company can fulfill the expectations of investors. The company has three main businesses, but investors are currently betting on only one of them. The first is their client business, mainly Ryzen processors for personal computers and laptops. In this field, they are waging a fierce battle with Intel, and they have managed to win a significant market share by offering consumers excellent performance at a competitive price. But this market itself is stagnating. The era of explosive growth of the PC has passed. This business is important, it generates stable income, but it cannot be the reason for a PE under 100. The second is the gaming segment. This includes their Radeon graphics cards, which compete with NVIDIA GeForce, and their custom chips for Sony PlayStation 5 and Microsoft Xbox gaming consoles. This business is also stable and important because it provides a predictable cash flow for years to come, but it is very cyclical and highly competitive. This segment also cannot justify such a high valuation. And the third most important business at the moment is the business for data centers. But it can be divided into two parts. The first is their already proven success, EPYC server processors. They really pushed out Intel Xeon and became a new standard for many cloud providers. This is a high margin and fast growing business, but the global market for server processors in 2025 is estimated at $13 to $15 billion per year. This market will grow by 5 to 10% and is projected to reach $19 billion by 2030. The second segment is much more important, the market for AI accelerators. In 2025, this market is estimated at $140+ billion. This market is expected to grow explosively to $440 billion by 2030, and AMD's main bet is connected with this market. NVIDIA dominates this market, already earning huge money with very fast growth dynamics. And the fact that AMD is a competitor for the most expensive company in the world is key to the current high valuation of the company. After all, if AMD manages to win back at least 5 to 10% of this market, then its high valuation will be fully justified. And in this game of investors, given the small current financial indicators of AMD in comparison with its value, it does not matter what happens in the first and second businesses of the company, because their weight in capitalization is insignificant. Investments in AMD are a concentrated bet on one single outcome. Will they be able to win back a significant share of the AI accelerator market from NVIDIA? Everything else is unimportant. Therefore, we need to figure this out further. To understand AMD's position in the AI race, we need to divide the battle into two fronts, hardware and software. I believe that there is no big gap between NVIDIA and AMD on the hardware front. Both companies do not have their own chip factories, but order them from TSMC, which makes them on ASML machines. That is, access to manufacturing technologies is the same. Both have brilliant engineers, so plus minus the chip engineering itself is also comparable. As a result, their flagship AI accelerators are very competitive in pure performance. There is no fundamental insurmountable gap in the hardware. The reason why NVIDIA dominates is because of software. And here there is not parity between the companies, but a chasm. AMD chips work on their ROCm software and NVIDIA chips on their CUDA software, and they are incompatible with each other. NVIDIA's CUDA ecosystem can be compared to Microsoft Windows, the operating system that dominates desktop computers. It is the standard for which almost all AI software is written. AMD's ROCm platform is, by analogy, like a new operating system. It may not be worse, but it is incompatible with most programs written for Windows. You can't force the entire global industry to switch from the familiar CUDA to ROCm. This is an almost impossible task due to the huge costs of rewriting programs and retraining specialists. And what do we see now, judging by AMD's past reports? What we see is that at a time when NVIDIA is literally collecting money like a vacuum cleaner, AMD's performance is stagnating against this background. And this means that Advanced Micro Devices has not yet managed to ride the wave of growth in GPU sales. And the flow of money is passing it by. It's already 2025. And the announcement of the release of the AMD Instinct MI300X AI accelerator was in 2023. This was the first chip from AMD that could compete with NVIDIA's flagships in performance. And as the company's management stated then, ROCm became its #1 priority. That is why, in the spring of 2024, the company's shares soared in price above $200 per share. Since the spring of 2024, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ have repeatedly rewritten their highs. And in many ways, the growth of the US market was based precisely on the development of the AI industry. But AMD shares were unable to reach new heights. And I think they failed because, in addition to theory and faith, investors are now waiting for at least signals on the practical implementation of the company's plans to conquer the GPU market. But these results are not in sight. While NVIDIA was growing exponentially, AMD's overall performance remained flat. A small increase in the server segment was offset by a decline in the consumer market. However, the market has shown great patience in evaluating AMD by its future potential. For AMD shares to grow further, promises must turn into real numbers in quarterly reports. Investors need to see evidence that the company has really started to receive billions of dollars from the sale of its AI accelerators. If this does not happen, a painful revaluation of shares downwards is inevitable. But despite the lack of practical results, we must admit that AMD has a very high potential for growth. And most importantly, investors' hope for a bright future has not yet died and probably will not die for a long time. Because despite the seemingly total victory of NVIDIA, there is another factor that can play in AMD's favor. I think that many in the market understand something more important. Investors' hope is based not so much on faith in AMD itself, but on understanding the strategic interests of its customers. To understand this hope of investors, you need to ask yourself a simple question. What are Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Amazon most afraid of? And they are afraid of the fact that there will be only one supplier of GPUs in the world, the most important component of data centers, and this is NVIDIA. A situation in which NVIDIA will be a monopolist for the entire industry will be a nightmare for the rest. It will be a complete dependence where the monopolist will dictate its terms. Therefore, it is beneficial for the tech giants to help AMD. This will be a strategic investment in creating a healthy competitive market. This will provide an alternative for NVIDIA and make them more accommodating. This will be insurance in case of production or logistical problems at NVIDIA, and this will limit the growth of the price of GPUs. They are betting that the world's biggest companies will not let AMD lose this race, because healthy competition in the AI accelerator market is a matter of their own survival and profitability. This theory that giants will support AMD is not just my guess. We are already seeing its confirmation in the real world. To date, giants such as Microsoft, Meta, Oracle Cloud, and major server manufacturers such as Supermicro and Dell have already publicly announced purchases or large-scale implementation of AMD Instinct MI300X AI accelerators. But here we are faced with the main question that torments investors. If there are orders, then where is the revenue? But here, the investor must be patient and understand that a lot of time may pass between the announcement of the chip and its mass purchase, which will be reflected in the report. And this can be understood using a simple model that I will describe. What I will describe is not exact information, but rather an assumption model. At the end of 2023, AMD announced the MI300X. A major client such as Microsoft could receive samples and spend the entire 2024 testing them in their labs for performance, power consumption, compatibility with their software. And only at the beginning of 2025, having positive test results and having an understanding that AMD needs to be supported in order to limit NVIDIA's monopoly, which I described above, the first order is made. Then, AMD, having received the order only at the beginning of 2025, gets in line for the production of these chips at TSMC factories. And plus to this, the production process itself can take 6 months. As a result, in this model, the first large deliveries of chips for Microsoft will have time to come only in the fall of 2025. And accordingly, AMD's financial indicators will be able to reflect these first deliveries only at the end of the third quarter of 2025 in the best and fastest option where there were no delays. Therefore, I assume that now in September 2025 and further, the first deliveries of GPUs from AMD may begin. Previously, they simply could not appear, but these first deliveries may not be many, and AMD's third quarter report will probably not have time to show strong financial results either. But if deliveries have already begun or will begin soon, then information about them may appear in the near future. And if such information appears, it will be a strong signal for AMD shares to grow. But we must understand that even if the first deliveries begin in the fall or winter of 2025, we will see truly significant full quarterly results from these deliveries in financial reports only for the first and second quarters of 2026. And this seemingly long period is not a sign of problems, but a normal speed for the world of hardware. It is this misunderstanding that creates the current situation. Impatient investors not seeing the results in 2024-2025 are doubtful. And patient investors must understand this cycle and realize that the main catalyst for growth is yet to come. But of course, I could be wrong, and it is possible that the tech giants are not going to help anyone. An indirect sign of this could be their desire to create their own chips, which they are working on. Then, NVIDIA's moat will be impregnable for AMD. And you need to understand that the company's shares have already grown ahead of schedule, and the PE has already reached almost 100. And this suggests that the company's indicators should grow by 2 to 2.5 times to justify the current share price. This is a serious bar that will be difficult to achieve, and there is a risk that the tech giants will give orders to AMD, but we will be talking about a share of 2 to 3%, which will increase AMD's financial indicators, but will not be enough to justify today's high valuation. As a result, we have AMD with a sky-high PE ratio, whose current financial performance does not even come close to justifying its high capitalization. But it is the only real competitor in the world for NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world, which has straddled the fast-growing GPU market. The strategic interests of the largest technology giants require the presence of a strong second player in the AI accelerator market in order to prevent NVIDIA from becoming a total monopoly. It is they, the main consumers of chips, who are interested in AMD's success. Investors have been waiting for a long time for the company's reports to reflect at least the first successes in conquering the GPU market, but so far there are no such results, which leads to disappointment. But investors need to take into account the long production cycle. From the announcement of the MI300X chip at the end of 2023 through the entirety of 2024 of testing and qualification with customers, to placing orders in early 2025 and their fulfillment at TSMC factories, it may take 2 years. And this time lag is not a sign of problems, but a normal speed. I think that most of the testing and production time has already passed, and in the next probably 6 months, AMD's reports will begin to reflect the company's first successes in GPU sales. As soon as the market sees the first news about the practical implementation of the company's GPU plans, the company's shares will have every reason to go to new heights above $200 per share. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.